So this talk is learning game accessibility through game jams. I hope that's what you're all here for. And at the end, I do want to say I'm going to try my best to have a discussion. So, I'm going to run through the PowerPoint. It's going to take however long it's going to take. Then we'll just be able to talk about game accessibility, because I loved our discussion so much last year. It was really good stuff on it. So, who am I? I'm AJ Ryan. I was chosen as Able Gamers' fellow for 2016. So they mentored me on game accessibility and got me in contact with a lot of developers and stuff. Helped a lot of devs with accessibility. I do game programming and design, and I do game jams with that. So yeah, that's me. And so the topic of today, which is game jams. So I'll just define terms just in case. I'm sure most of you are familiar. But a game jam is when you sit for a short period of time and you make a game. So it can be a day, 2 days, a week, sometimes even a month. But you try to knock out a game, in a short amount of time. And, these are perfect for learning new skills. And because you don't have any bloat, it's not like this big project you've been running for 2 years. You start clean and you can just get in there and add new stuff, and it's really great. So I definitely believe this is a great way to learn accessibility stuff, because you're not bogged down by your project normally. And a big thing with accessibility is you want to start early, to consider all the options. So, a game jam game, you're starting that day. So it's just really nice. It's just a really nice environment, in my opinion, to learn accessibility. And sometimes things can't make it into like your final game or whatever, but a game jam game, it's just a couple days. You can probably add something. So what I wanted to do with this talk, I was trying to figure out the best way, the most entertaining way, to show you all some accessibility stuff. Last year I think I just had bullet points, just a list of this is what you should do. But I thought, what, I think it'd be a lot better if you all learned from my examples. And this isn't me just, being up here like, here's how I made my game so accessible. I'm going to go through my mistakes too. And that's something I think a lot of people in the accessibility place don't do. They don't talk about how they messed up. So I'm going to tell you all some stuff, that I wish I did with my game jams, or my games, and some stuff that's also that I'm proud of that I got in. So I believe, so if you're also making a game, definitely look at other games to, temper your expectations a bit, because, it's unrealistic to get a fully voiceover game in like 2 days. That's not going to happen, probably. So, just look at tag searching with Global Game Jam and itch.io, and, this stuff will be somewhere online. So let's just get on to the examples. So the first, I think this is in chronological order, maybe not. But anyways, the first game I'm gonna go through is called GalactiMAX, and this is basically it's a short space shooter with an evolving ship. We just made it, I think, in like a day, maybe even 12 hours, and it's just a really short like vignette of a space shooter. Really simple, really basic, and I wanted it, from the beginning to be deployed on PC and mobile. And what I learned with this is that I had some accidental accessibility happen because I was designing for mobile from the beginning. This was when I was first really getting into accessibility, so I was still thinking of mobile before like a lot of other things that I consider now. So with mobile, I thought, the first thing I wanted to do was have the ship shoot automatically, because tapping a fire button on your phone just isn't fun. There's no tactile feedback. The vibration feedback feels awkward. So I'm just going to have the ship, shoot automatically. And that helped with accessibility too, because not everyone can hammer a fire button really quick. And some of those games, especially on NES, you got to tap the button over and over again just to shoot at a decent rate. It hurts after a while. So I did that, and I also added in touch control. And in my engine, touch control also translated nicely into mouse control. And what's interesting about that is I actually tested some eye software, like some software to like move your mouse pointer with your eyes, and it could totally play my game. And I'm like, this is the future. I am playing a space game with my eyes. And I'll just briefly mention it here. This goes for like everything I'm talking about, I think. But I also, I worked with an artist, Steve over there. He's awesome, and he made it colorblind friendly with high contrast graphics. And that really just helps, more people play the game. If you have 1 million bullets coming at you, you want to be able to see every single bullet. Like that really help out. So I'm gonna load up my game here and then talk about one thing I didn't like with this game, and it has a full screen button, so don't worry, it won't be cut off. There we go. So I'll play this for a second, and what you might notice is I put this CRT shader into it. I thought it was the coolest shader ever. I put this shader in all my projects for about a few months, but after a little while, I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, you know what, this shader makes it kind of just harder to play. It's kind of harder to see things. I think there's a reason why we don't use CRTs anymore unless you're playing Melee. So, like, I really wish I added a toggle to turn this off. Like, just like a main menu button or something up here that you can just tap the switch on and off. And actually with my mobile version, I did change it so the shader just doesn't exist on that version. Honestly, maybe, I think some people would appreciate that, but not many. So yeah, that was GalactiMAX overall. I'm still proud of it. It was a really cool 12-hour project, I think. So the next thing I'm going to get to actually doesn't have to do with game jams, but it has so much, so many things that you could do in a game jam. So many techniques that I think translates perfectly to what you might do in a game jam that I'm going to talk about it. So, and this is my Sega Chill Editions project. So I'm just going to boot up what this is because explaining it's a little difficult. But basically, Sega did this really cool thing. They put a bunch of Sega Genesis games on Steam, and it had some, crappy front end, whatever. But then a few years later, they added Steam Workshop support. So a bunch of Sega mods could go up on the store. There's like one Streets of Rage mod where every enemy that dies, Tim Allen grunts. There's another one where like you can play as every Sonic character in the entire Sonic universe, which I'm like, how does that even fit in a Sega cartridge? But what I ended up doing was something called Chill Editions. And this is basically, what I basically did, really what I did was I baked Game Genie codes into the games to help more people play the games, people with disabilities, because not everyone can beat, very few people can beat this game Alien Soldier or Gunstar Heroes. They're really tough games, and a lot of people just can't get through them. So I worked, both with Game Genie codes and like monitoring hex values to find, some stuff I can add to the games to make them more playable. So I'll just click on Alien Soldier here. I scroll down. I added to this game, like invincibility, infinite time, credits. I know another one, stage select, I like to do all the time. And, stuff like that. So getting back into the PowerPoint here, now that you kind of know, here's Comic Zone as well. It's like one of my favorite games on Genesis, so I have to plug that in. So I created these mods, and they were simple and effective. I loved getting comments like, hey, my father, had an injury. We used to play games all the time in the 90s. Now, he no longer can game with me because of that injury, but he can play, Golden Axe with me with their Chill Editions. Like, that's really cool. That's why I did this. So what I did was I aimed for low-hanging fruit features. I was talking to someone at Game Accessibility Conference, Josh from Dagger System, and we talked about the idea of low-hanging fruit and how developers, you should hit that. There's like really easy things you should do, and it's like infinite lives. What's that? You're constantly writing 9 to the lives value of your game. That's not that difficult to add, or level selector, infinite time. These are all easy, just changing variables really if you think about it, and that can really help a lot of people play your games. Now I will say it doesn't work with every game. Specifically if you have multiplayer leaderboards, there's things to consider there. I'm not saying every game needs all of this. But I think a lot of games could add more god modes, more infinite lives, more level selects, etc. Because, it was in cheat code, you usually needed a cheat code, but they used to be in like every single game in the 90s. And now it's just like you can't pick the level, you gotta play the whole campaign to play the really cool final level. And, it's just, I think it should come back. I think cheat codes should come back, and maybe you should just put them in the options menu so, people can easily access that content. Alright, so the next one. Last year I learned here through our discussion about a really cool engine called Twine. And this is an engine where basically you can make a story-based game. I can't really show much gameplay of this because, well, it's a story that's boring. But, boring to watch. But You showed me Twine, so I made this game called Brain Busters, which is it's like a cyberpunk stealth choose your own adventure kind of game. I did it for Global Game Jam 2017, and so you can go through and click all the options and stuff, and they have hyperlinks down here. This is the important part and what I really want to talk about: hyperlinks. So my game is text-based, it has choices and stuff. And because of it being text-based, I'm like, well, this is going to be accessible to the blind, right? It's just going to be easy and accessible, and I'm not going to have to do very much, then make sure they can play it. I was kind of wrong. I used a backend called Harlow, which is like the default. So I was really new to Twine, and it said, hey, use Harlow because it's the default. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll roll with that. And I consulted with a blind gamer friend, Sightless Combat. He's like really good at Killer Instinct and other fighting games. So I had him test it for me. And he said, hey, hyperlinks don't work. And I'm like, it has links. They have to work. That's a hyperlink. But then I downloaded his screen reader software, NVDA. I should have probably linked that because it's free. But I downloaded that, tested it for myself, and sure enough, my hyperlinks weren't working. And I'm like, but they're links? But so it turns out, the short version, as Harlow just doesn't, however it implemented hyperlinks, it doesn't do it correctly. It doesn't do it like a web browser should see it. So, what we ended up doing is, I think I'll boot up my game again, I had to move all of my links out of, I had like this next thing, I had this embedded into the text. I would choose certain words in the text to advance it, but that, it didn't work at all. So instead I moved all the choices down to the bottom, and then I put keywords. You can see this keyword next, and then, oh no, the resolution's too small, I think. That's fine. Bug, beta bug. Well, anyways, I put another option in here later called option, which is another, we have one more try. Whatever. I put another keyword called options in, and that helped him. That helped him figure out where, what to click, where to go next. Because, next, option, I think I had like replay as well as a third keyword. These all really helped out. But what I should have done is use this backend called Snowman. Because Snowman in Twine is just JavaScript. And guess what? JavaScript supports like hyperlinks and everything really cool that all web browsers should support. So that's pretty much what I learned from that. If you want to make an accessible game, for now use Snowman. I believe, I read on forums that Harlow is going to fix this issue, but until they do, I'd highly recommend Snowman. And as a programmer, I think that's probably what I should have stuck with that anyways, because it's JavaScript and I could have customized the game a little more. And hey, maybe the glitch that just happened wouldn't have happened if I used it. So there you go. So the final game I'm going to go over is a train jam game called Protect the Rocket. And this game is interesting because I made it, during train jam, which meant I had no internet and no way to consult, any gamers, my normal network of gamers that I kind of have, and during game jams I shoot links out on Twitter or whatever. I couldn't do any of that because I was just on a train and tunnels and stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is different. So the only thing I had to go on, really, was what I wanted to do, and that was to create a one-switch action game accessible to the blind with speed settings. It's almost like I threw a bunch of accessibility things in a hat and just pulled out a few, and one switch, blind accessibility and speed settings were the three things I pulled out of that hat. So this is what I ended up with. I am going to actually enable audio. I kind of forgot you need audio for this one.
Protect the rocket.
Whoa, cool.
High score 0.
So you can see
Protect the rocket.
It reads out all the information.
Save.
And also, both the enemies, I worked with the sound designer, and they have unique sound effects on the enemies, so it's really cool because you can you can listen to the game. And here's the speed settings. So if I turn this down, start. You can play by sound. and do terrible like me.
Start.
But also if you
Zero.
hover over,
0.
it'll read out your score. I'm
Zero.
really bad at this game, and I'll just stop now. But so yeah, so it's a reaction game, but you can slow it down or speed it up. If you play on 2.0 and get like over 100,000 points, I think I'll give you a prize, because it's impossible. I'll never. The joke is I'll never have to deliver on that promise. But so I got speech synthesis in there, and overall I was really proud of that on a train. I did show it to one of my accessibility friends, and what I did miss was tab indexing for menu navigation. Because, you know, if you use screen readers, typically what you do is you hit tab to navigate through all the hyperlinks and kind of a web page and stuff, and I just kind of blanked. I'm like, well, it has speech synthesis, right? So that's something I should have added, but I only had about probably 40 hours to work on it total, and, you know, the train, it's just a weird environment, but that's something I definitely wish I did in the future, was tabbing, indexing. So now here's the fun part, resources, because there's a few really cool things you can take advantage of if you're doing a game jam. And I want to start here with Able Gamers' includification. There's a really nice PDF as well over here, but basically you can just pick you know, a multitude of you know, categories, and then we even broke it down into level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 3, actually speed settings, that wasn't that hard, and that's level 3. Okay, well generally, level 1s are all really easy to add, and I think are totally doable in a game jam. Even even that isn't that hard to do if you're doing something in scope, but you can kind of scope out, kind of before your jam, what might be good to add to your game before. And it's not hard. I mean, just, you know, read some of these hyperlinks and stuff and just be like, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, that sounds good. And even if, I would just be so happy if, you know, you walk away from here today and you're just like, or roll if you're me, and you're just like, hey, I'm going to think about accessibility next time I make a game. That's all I want. As long as you like boot up this web page or think about accessibility,
High score,
that's fine.
3,000.
Go away. That's great. That's really what I'd like from today. So there's includification. There's also something really useful IGDA has, and it's the Game Access Special Interest Group. You don't need to be a member of IGDA, I don't believe, to get emails and, you know, participate in this. At least I wasn't for a little bit when I joined up initially. And they have news, and they also have what I really like about this is they have somewhere they have kind of like scholarly papers, which is kind of difficult to find normally on accessibility. It's, you know, if you're writing a paper, you know, for school or for fun, probably not for fun, but you can you know, you can use these as a resource, and it's really nice. And I didn't know about it. I would have definitely referenced it. And it's just a really cool community. That's what I really want to say with this. It's a really cool community of developers. And from 3A, you know, 3A to Indie, all, you know, dedicated to accessibility. Just a really nice place on the internet there. And that link's not going to work, so I'm actually going to circle back to it. Oh no, is this link not going to work either? That's fine. Guess what? I prepared, and I actually have the links. The joke is I have the links. Okay, so the next thing is Spectrum, and this is a free Google Chrome app. I didn't want to add it to this web browser because this is not my computer. But what you can basically do is, if you look at these screenshots, you can boot up any web page and put a variety of filters on it. You know, you might be like, okay, that's a little cool. How does that work for like video games? Well, if you upload a private YouTube video, if your game's HTML5, or, you know, if it can be played on a web browser, this thing still works. That's why I love it. This will work in real time with your game. So you can literally test, like, your entire game with a certain colorblind filter on it. Or play, you know, just like a long play video of your game or whatever. So it's not, you know, it's simple to install. You just hit that and it'll install. And then, you know, totally free as well. Then you can just play your entire game. I see some people, like, take screenshots and put them in Photoshop or try to just use color theory, and I'm just like, download the app and play the game. I mean, until you really know, you know, exactly, you know, the color theory and stuff behind it all, this is a really nice way to test your game, and it's free. Speaking of free and nice ways to test your game, there's also this, and this actually came up yesterday on Twitter. I'm so happy it did because I'm like the only one that talks about this one. And it's the Photosensitive Epilepsy Analysis Tool, or PEAT, as it is also known as the acronym. So PEAT is a really easy, free downloadable resource. And what you do, I think this only takes videos as input, but you'll input a video with, you have flashing lights in your game, or you think, hey, my game might not be photosensitive. And so you import your video into this tool, and it has this neat little graph, and it also has a really loud beeping noise if you fail. And it'll just tell you, hey, is your game compliant with, epilepsy? Will it trigger that or not? And it's just a really easy and free tool. There is a caveat, and that is because it's education from this university in Maryland. It expired in 2015 or something, or 2016. It won't work. If you run it now, it won't work. It'll say fail. If you turn your Windows PC clock back to 2013, it works. And I am convinced that is intentional. I'm convinced the developers were like, okay, we want this to be used forever, so we're just going to allow you to roll your clock back and make it work. So yeah, just you really only need to boot this up once your game's kind of polished and you're about ready to ship it out or whatever. So I'd say, when you're ready to ship out your game, roll your clock back I think I said 2013. Just run this once, test it, make sure it's good to go, and you can set everything back to normal. It's a little bit of a pain, but it's free. What can you do? And with that is real. Oh, okay. Because I'm not going to actually show these. There's also 2 talks from GDC that I think are really interesting and totally free. You don't need vault access or anything. One's YouTube, one's whatever Microsoft uses for their stuff. But the first one's called Evolve, an adventure in accessibility retrofitting. This is from my friend Tara, and it's not really about the game. You can have your opinions on Evolve, as a game, but this is about accessibility in that game. And that game is also really unique in that it got a relaunch for a PC and then got killed off really fast. But it had a couple phases to it, so this is really interesting for that reason to see. Kind of like in phase 1, what did they do with accessibility? Phase 2, how did they improve it? What they were going to do, there's cutting room floor stuff on really cool accessibility features that were going to be patched in, but then 2K pulled out. So it's a really cool talk, and even if you're just interested in game, whatever, stuff that never made it into games, you'll learn a lot from this. The other one is Xbox accessibility features for on Xbox One and PC. And this was a talk by Evelyn Thomas. She runs, kind of the API stuff with Xbox. But more than Xbox, I should say. Really what's interesting is their approach, the accessibility on their platform. Even if you're oh, I'm only going to publish to Steam, this is still really interesting because it'll show you what 3A is doing to help and foster accessibility and, the API they have created that you might be able to replicate or, just use if you're on their platform. Most interesting in this, or at least my favorite thing, was they figured out how to do speech to text in a game. So it's just like on PC, if you're playing most PC games, you have a text box, and throughout the game you can talk to your friends, be toxic, whatever. But Xbox figured out a way that just convert your voice into text. So now, if if you're deaf, if you can't hear, you still get that text box experience. And what's really cool, something I think is even better, is that you can, I think it'll open up the door to getting more keyboard chat on console, which I think is really cool. Because not everyone's comfortable talking on a mic. Sometimes you just don't feel like it. And that's just something I'd like to see for certain console games, just chat pad support. So we'll see. It's a really good talk on APIs and stuff. And coming soon is all of the game accessibility conference recordings. So they're not up yet. They're all getting captioned. But once they are, I'll figure this out somehow to get the information out. But they're all going to be completely free on YouTube. 6 hours of great content on accessibility stuff. You can pick and choose what you want to watch, and there's a lot of variety in it. I'm sure you'll find something you'll love out of that content.